Raider Nation, it's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, I'm going to be ranking which quarterback is the most likely to be the starting QB for the Silver and Black in 2024. I'm going to have them ranked from 10 all the way down to 1. I do want to make this note, though. This is not the QB that I believe is the best fit for Kliff Kingsbury. It is my opinion. It is my prediction. If I were to make a bet right now and say, Mitch, who's going to be the starter? That's what this list is. I got it right last year with Aidan O'Connell. Got it right with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think I've been pretty good at this segment. So I'm just saying, whoever ends up number 1, people are talking here. If you're excited for football this season, but not only football, Raiders football. And don't get me wrong, man. I am excited every single year. And even though when the Raiders had Josh McDaniels, I'd always try to figure out a way to say, all right, I like where the team's going here. Even back in the days with John Gruden when they were doing some questionable things, I still was able to get myself hyped up because I love the Raiders and I love hanging out with y'all. But honest to God, I have done this show for 4 years, and I've put out a video every day. This is by far the most excited offseason that I have ever had here on this show. I have never loved the head coach more than I loved Antonio Pierce. I've never loved what a coaching staff has done. I still want to see what they do at QB, and hopefully they listen to me and they take one of the top quarterbacks that I have on my list here. And if you feel the same way, subscribe. We're going to have a lot of fun this offseason. All right, let's go to these quarterback rankings here. Coming in at number 10, it is the guy who started the most games last season, Aidan O'Connell. And Aidan's got to make this list. And the reason why Aidan has to be in the top 10 options is because, well, he is literally the only quarterback that I believe is going to be on the roster starting next season. I know Anthony Brown's technically signed a reserve contract. He's not going to be there. The Raiders are going to cut Jimmy Garoppolo. The Raiders are going to cut Brian Hoyer, which means just from an overall betting odds, prediction standpoint, if you were to put out the top 10 odds, you'd be dumb to not have Aidan O'Connell on that list. And honestly, I might even have Aidan a little bit too low, but I just don't think in a Kliff Kingsbury offense and a spread offense, it makes any sense whatsoever for you to be able to go back to AOC. Will he be a backup quarterback on this team? Potentially. I'll be honest, I don't really think he fits what Kliff is trying to do, but he should be on this list, and he comes in here at number 10. Let's go to number 9 on my list for Raiders quarterback rankings, Baker Mayfield. Yes, Baker Mayfield. Mayfield does have some experience playing with Kliff Kingsbury in years past, and we have seen anytime NFL head coaches get certain guys, well, maybe they're interested. On top of that, you got to be able to give Mayfield his flowers here. He had 28 touchdowns this past season, 10 interceptions, over 4,000 yards, was able to win a playoff game, and I don't know if he necessarily fits exactly what I think the Raiders are going to do in terms of their vertical passing attack and trying to find more of a mobile quarterback. Baker's not mobile, but he can move when being pressured. My point is this. If you told me right now the Raiders ended this offseason with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback, I would say it's a very disappointing offseason. However, if you get into a pinch and some shit goes wrong and you think it's going to be able to go a certain way, could they look at Baker? I will still say that I believe Mayfield's going to be under center for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season. But you know what? This is the main comment here. This is the big granddaddy of them all. You're about to get hit with the YouTube ad break. And while you're getting hit with that YouTube ad break, I'm going to be honest with you. Let the ad play. Every time. It helps me and Jeremy out a lot. So while that ad is playing, scroll on down, put your vote in. Who is going to be the Raiders starting quarterback in 2024? My answer? Well, you'll see who's number 1 on the list. Coming up here at number 8, it is Drake Maye from North Carolina. And for those of you that watch the show, you'll know that Maye is my favorite quarterback in this year's class. And if the Raiders ended up drafting him, I would absolutely love it. I have also said, though, that from all the QB prospects, if they're going to trade up, I have an inkling that they wouldn't trade up for Maye just based on relationships that the Raiders already have. So the reason why Maye's coming in here at 8 is just because we know how difficult it's going to be for the Silver and Black to trade up and try to get into the top 3 picks, let alone if they get into the top 3 picks. I think they're going to go in a little bit of a different direction. Maye is an extremely talented QB, and he did not have the best season this past year, but that's more just because the talent on the North Carolina Tar Heels was garbage. Last year, in 2022, when he actually had a few receivers that went to the NFL, and I would say had NFL talent around him, he showcased his arm. He showcased the ability. His accuracy sometimes can be a little sporadic, but he's a lot better of an athlete than people give him credit for. Drake Maye is going to come in here on my list at number 8, which means coming up here next at number 7, and I think this is going to be a name that a lot of people are going to be very controversial over this entire offseason. It's Oregon quarterback Bo Nix. I have seen the reports that Telesco likes Nix, but again, this is starting quarterback options in 2024. I believe if the Raiders end up taking Nix out of Oregon, he's not your starter this year. You will still need to be able to go out and add a free agent quarterback because, let's face it, Nix is simply not ready to play at the NFL level. He was one of the biggest losers from the Senior Bowl this past week, and I get it. He had a hell of a season with the Ducks back in 2023, and considering where he was with Auburn and where he is now, I mean, there's a lot of improvement in that. But I just can't wrap my mind around a good NFL evaluator, a good NFL draft talent evaluator saying that Bo Nix deserves to go in round one. Bo Nix does not deserve to go in round one for the Raiders. It would be a bad move for them. I know some people are going to disagree with that. That's okay. I just think that if there's one position that I've gotten right throughout my entirety of my career, it's been at the quarterback position. I'm going to tell you who's number 6 on our list in just a second, but I do got to show some love to today's sponsor, Prize Picks, and I love me some Prize Picks. And I think, honestly, anybody who's already tried Prize Picks, you're like, dude, this is so much fun. And it is fun. It's easy. It's exciting. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. And all you got to do is choose more or less on players. And you can pick 2+ players. You can play NBA, NFL games. Once the NFL ends, literally any sport is almost available on Prize Picks. I know a lot of people like golf as well. So if you want to get started, it's prizepicks.com/CLNS. Just make sure that you use code CLNS on top of that. And for a lot of people that don't want to watch the Super Bowl, well, guess what? Watch the Super Bowl. Go get started with Prize Picks. Put some money down. You got an opportunity to win. Like, I think this right now gives me a good chance to win. This is 20 to win 200. If somebody looks at that and goes, yeah, I'm on board for that, go put your money where your mouth is. And when I think about how far this show has come, right? When you think about when you first start doing a show, but you also start thinking like, I remember watching Prize Picks and I saw it on TV. This is like 3 years ago. And then I got started and I loved it. I do it all the time. And then when they were like, hey, Mitch, we want to sponsor the Raiders Report, I mean, that's one of the biggest pat on the backs I can possibly get. So I'm telling you right now, shout out to all of y'all for making Prize Picks possible. I have used it for a long time, and I know once you start, you're going to have a lot of fun, especially when you have to watch a game between two teams that you do not want either of those teams to win. So one more time here, it's prizepicks.com/CLNS, code CLNS. Let's go to number 6 here. It's Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington. And Penix was probably one of the best quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl, but I still, from people that I talked to, didn't love what they saw from him. And when you think about the last 2 seasons in college, I mean, there's not many quarterbacks that put up the numbers that he was able to put up. I will admit the injury history scares the heck out of me. There's going to be a lot of red flags in that. He is up there in age. On top of that, he's a lefty, which maybe is not a big deal for some of y'all, but I do think it has to go into the evaluation for a team like the Raiders of, okay, we have Colton Miller as a left tackle. We technically do not have a right tackle right now. And you're going to spend that money on the blind side. And a lot of times when you have a lefty quarterback, your offensive tackles cost more because if you're Colton Miller, you're like, well, I still want to get paid left tackle money because that's usually the blind side of a QB. And if you're not going to pay me that, I'll just go somewhere else. But then if you also have a lefty QB, you got to be able to pay that right tackle, left tackle money because now they have to protect the blind side. I think Penix has got some ups, he's got some downs, but overall, I still would not be confident if the Raiders started Michael Penix Jr. to be their guy this upcoming season. So I still think that you might even have to sit him for a year. I do think he might end up going in round 1. For me, though, again, if I'm the Raiders, I'm not taking Michael Penix Jr., I'm not taking Bo Nix, I'm not taking J.J. McCarthy in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. Let's go to number 5 here on the list. And to me, there are 2 free agent quarterbacks, and I know Russell Wilson is not a free agent yet. However, he will be released by the Denver Broncos this offseason. As soon as the Broncos cut him, he's going to get $89 million, which means to me, I believe he's going to take a team-friendly type of deal because he cares more about his legacy than he does winning money, considering the fact of how much money Sierra makes, considering the fact of how much money he's already made. And I'm a believer that Russell Wilson signs a $1.21 million vet minimum deal to stick it to the Broncos. If you're like, Mitch, how does him taking less money stick it to the Broncos? Whatever contract he signs this year, the Broncos also get a credit for. So if he signs a contract for $40 million, the Broncos get $40 million in a credit that they can use the following year. If he signs a deal for 1.21, well, that means the Broncos get 1.21. When you're a guy like Russell Wilson, and I get it, he's a cornball, it'd be a bad fit in the locker room. I'll be real, I don't love the fit. But if you told me right now that I can find a potential top 12 quarterback at that price tag that also has the ability to be able to run around and be mobile, I definitely think it's something that you should entertain the idea with. Coming in here at number 4, it is Kirk Cousins. And I will admit, if Clint Kubiak would have been the OC, and Kubiak is now the new OC with the New Orleans Saints, I'll say that if Kubiak would have been the OC, Cousins would have been a lot higher on this list, even higher than 4. But the reason why he's so high up here on this list is because he is the top quarterback in free agency. And if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, and let's say you try to trade up to a top 3 pick, but you swing and a miss. Let's say you don't get Justin Fields or a quarterback like that. Well, then you might have to look to this option in Cousins. And Cousins, yes, coming off the pop Achilles. I would be hesitant because he is looking for apparently $45 million per year guaranteed type of money. Coming off, again, that popped Achilles. And if you're the Raiders and you're like, all right, I got to install a brand new offense with Kliff Kingsbury, I might not have a quarterback that can practice my entire offseason. It just gives me deja vu vibes of what they went through last offseason with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I want a quarterback in the first year of Kliff Kingsbury that can work with its players, receivers, offensive line, tight ends, I don't care who the hell it is, the entire offseason. I don't want a dude that just shows up in July and then has to get his footing and get everything going. That's just too late. It's also way too much to risk. I'll get into my top 3 options here in just a second. And realistically, any of these next 3 I'd be very, very happy about. But for those that do not know, Chugs and I, we're going to be doing a big game watch party in Las Vegas. If you want to know where, it's at the Ahern Luxury Hotel inside at the Ahern Live Showroom. When? Sunday, February 11th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Here's the address if you want to be able to write it down. If you want to reserve a spot, I need you to go to this link down below, chatsports.com/biggame. That link's going to also be available to you down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. If you want to attend, it is 100% for free. I just recommend that you try to reserve a spot because what I don't want is for you to show up and then all the spots are booked. So if you're like, Mitch, I really, really want to go, $99 for the happy hour pass. VIP pass is $149. But with these passes, you get all you can eat, all you can drink, and with the VIP pass, you have a better opportunity to actually join the Raiders Report live with Jeremy Chugs and I. Hope to see you there. FKC, F the Niners, pull up, chatsports.com/biggame. Let's go to number 3 here on my list for Raiders quarterback rankings in 2024. Jayden Daniels. And the Heisman Trophy winner probably has the best relationship out of any of the other 2 quarterbacks with Antonio Pierce and with assistant head coach Marvin Lewis. And this one has been in the works, I think, for a very long time. The problem is, I don't know if the Raiders are going to be able to trade up to number 3. And that's just the bold, hard fact where it's not as likely to trade up to a top 3 pick than a lot of people think. And that's coming from me, right? Like, I know what I want the Raiders to do. I do think, though, based off of the moves that the Raiders have made from a coaching staff standpoint and based off of the way that Antonio Pierce has operated this ship since he's been the interim, he's going to trust his guys. And I know Jayden Daniels, who, when he gave his Heisman Trophy speech, mentioned Antonio Pierce. He mentioned Marvin Lewis. Jayden Daniels is in the Raiders locker room after Week 18. There has been a lot of smoke around their relationship. The Antonio Pierce, Marvin Lewis, they follow Jayden Daniels. They don't follow this next guy coming in here at number 2, which is Caleb Williams. And the sole fact that Williams is ranked at number 2 over Jayden is because this is based on Kliff Kingsbury, where, yeah, it's probably still going to be the final say goes to Antonio Pierce. The final say still goes to Tom Telesco. But if Kliff walks in that room and he goes, hey, you hired me to be the OC, and if you want me to be able to run my ship, I want to go with Caleb Williams. And I'm not going to be upset if they do that. Does he have bust potential? Yes. Every single player in the NFL draft, every quarterback has bust potential. But you know what? This guy's been comped to Patrick Mahomes. You know who used to work with Patrick Mahomes? Kliff Kingsbury. So if you're trying to take down the man on top of the mountain, maybe sometimes it's a copycat league. If we can find a copycat of Patrick Mahomes, you're crazy if you don't want something like that. I'm not saying like that's how it's going to turn out, that's how it's going to pan out. Nobody knows how it's going to pan out. But if Kliff Kingsbury wants a quarterback that he worked with previously, that knows can fit his system, And that, to me, is the reason why I had Caleb at 2 and Jayden Daniels at 3. But as I have stated, it is not going to be easy for the Las Vegas Raiders to trade up and get a QB, which is why I think the most likely option, if you told me, Mitch, who is going to be the Raiders starting quarterback in 2024, if I had to push my chips in the middle of the table, I would say it's going to be Justin Fields. And the reason why that I think it's going to be Justin Fields is because of the compensation. You're not going to have to give up multiple first-round picks, multiple second-round picks. I believe that it's going to be like a second, maybe a second with a comp. If he gets hurt, it turns into a third-round pick along the lines of that. On top of that, if you're the Raiders, I don't think that you want to piss off Champ Kelly. And I'm not saying piss him off because he didn't get the job. He is still there as an assistant GM. Well, Champ Kelly's going to want to have a conversation, and I do think that Fields would be an intriguing fit in a Kliff Kingsbury style of offense. On top of that, not only can he get it done with his arms, he can get it done with his legs, which I would love to see in a spread. Again, he's got a strong arm. It fits a lot of the things that he can do well. You're going to see a lot of screens. He's a good screen quarterback. You're going to see a lot more running than what people think. He can run the football. And Kliff, if I'm looking at Kliff, I go, well, why Kyler Murray? And I know Kyler Murray and Justin Fields are very two different quarterbacks, but they have the athletic ability that I do think is similar in certain regards where you can use some of the things that you learned from working with a guy like Patrick Mahomes, working with a guy like a Kyler Murray, and you put some of that together, Caleb Williams, and you go, all right, can I get Justin Fields at a cheaper rate to potentially turn into one of those quarterbacks? Because Fields has got all the talent in the world. He's been in bad situations, and right now, he hasn't been able to put it together. Is it a risk? Yes. But if you're also talking about risk, he's 24 years old, right? Like, he's younger than Aidan O'Connell. So if you want to just take a younger quarterback and you don't have to risk as much, it's a $6 million cap hit, and then it would be $22 million if you decide to give him his fifth-year option the following season. Justin Fields is the most likely option to be the Raiders' starting quarterback in 2024. Book it. So pick a QB out of my top 3. Who do you think is the most likely option? Most likely option to be the Raiders quarterback this season. If you think it's Justin Fields, I want you to type JF. If you think it's Jayden Daniels, I want you to type JD. If you think it's Caleb Williams, go with CW. Or if you believe it's an entirely different quarterback, type O for other. One more time here, let's roll through my quarterbacks that I believe are the most likely to be the starter for the Las Vegas Raiders in 2024. Coming in here at number 10, it's Aidan O'Connell. At number 9, Baker Mayfield. At number 8, Drake Maye. Bo Nix at 7. Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr. at 6. Then some veterans, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins at 5 and 4. Your 2 rookies, Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams. And then at number 1, Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields. You, sir, are a Raider. For more updates and more news around Las Vegas, subscribe. We've been putting out a bunch more shorts. And if there's anybody that I missed, let me know. I know I'm going to get some people say, hey, what about Joe Milton? Hey, what about Jordan Travis? What about J.J. McCarthy? To me, none of those quarterbacks are even close to being starters, which is why they were not ranked in my top 10.